Greetings and welcome everybody to the Jane Live Miracle Medicine on a Thursday. We're at it again, and this evening we are moving from the 6-part gut health and the 30-day gut health detox series to the lungs. And one of the reasons for that is in the Southern Hemisphere, it's winter time, and there's quite a lot of sniffles and lung infections, some very chronic, and also having, come through and still very much in part of the COVID series. So we're going to be talking about 10 of the most common causes of lung problems. I think it's all very well the diagnosis, but the reality is that we need to get to the root cause of disease always. And we're going to be looking at the vital role of oxygen and the pathway of oxygen from the air through our nostrils, through our lungs. How does it get into the blood system? How does it get into the cell? And look at certain diseases and disorders that get in the way there too. Because at the end of the day, we need oxygen in our cell so that the oxygen can. It's vital for cellular detoxification. We have 3 minutes to detox that cell, otherwise the body dies. So it's not so much of we need air, but we need air for what? For detoxification and for certain other enzymatic pathways that do require oxygen. So very important to put oxygen, I think, in context and the whole respiratory system. So I'm going to be answering your questions, and very warm welcome to everybody. It's always good to see people from all around the world, and my faves, and now the load shedding supporting us this evening, so we okay. And I do urge you to put your questions down in the chat. And I just want to say at this stage that we have a host of testimonials regarding lungs. I think, yes, the liver is important to me. The gut is important. The kidneys, the skin, the lymph, the blood, all very, very important. But the lungs being the interface between the external and the internal, similarly to the gut, it's the interface between the external and the internal body. Nostrils, the larynx, the bronchus, the bronchioles, the alveoli, and the membrane of the lungs, is squeaky clean. There can't be any plaque, there can't be any mucus buildup, any infections, any toxins, any environmental toxins living there, because all of that's going to detract from, maximizing the oxygen that you take in. And let's have a look at that, and at the same time have a look at the blood, because the heme, the iron in the blood, in the red blood cell, is going to carry the oxygen. It's going to bind with the oxygen and carry it. And there's various blood disorders, thick blood, etc., and slower blood that is also going to detract from maximizing the oxygen potential inside the cell. And we'll look at the cell membrane, because that needs to have a proper electrical potential. The membrane needs to have its own voltage, and in order for oxygen to move across the electrical potential and into the cell and do what it needs to do inside the cell. So what I can do now is just bring some slides in. Let me just see here. Let's go to this. And some nice, I think, really practical information that we can take forward and into our lives on an everyday basis. And paying particular attention also to our posture, our lifestyle. And it's just going to take a few minutes to pull this through. So I think you've all been to shows when you were younger, and still are young maybe, where they had the pictures of a healthy lung and an unhealthy lung. We've all seen that, and I'm just going to remind you of that too, because we must get the right visual in perspective. let's just start the slideshow. So here we have our 30-day detox challenge, which we're bringing in as well. And people are moving with me. We're doing the gut, we're doing the lungs, we'll do liver, we'll do kidney, we'll do skin, we'll do blood and lymph mainly, so that all the detoxification organs have been covered. I want to make sure that we've all got it regarding these detox organs, because if the toxins can't get out of the 5 major detox organs, then what happens is that another one will get overloaded. So let's say the gut is blocked, the person's constipated, the kidney is not filtering properly, all the urea is filtering back into the blood, and there's protein and calcification, stones building up. And it said the skin's blocked, nobody ever exfoliates, and it's full of rancid oil, etc. Then there's going to be a massive overload on the lungs. And, it's going to then get a whole lot of diagnostic names. It's going to be diagnosed, and then, medicines are going to be provided. But all we have to do is make sure that these detox organs are clear. And it's one thing that we do specifically with the quantum medicine software we have, which is the largest medical software platform in the world, and is to open up and cleanse and clean the detoxification organs. It's number one. So with that, let's move through. And I'm just also reminding everybody today about the our EMF and radiation devices and earthing mats. So there we have the sickie, and you'll see a lot of the COVID webinars that are recorded talking about lungs. So, what's really going on here? We're sneezing because the nose is telling us we don't need either a toxin or a chemical that we've just breathed in, or in fact, we are sneezing, we're building up mucus because it's the body's natural way of forming inflammation and removing the toxin. So it's when we don't have a good enough immunity that we then struggle and disease sets in. So here's a graphic example of an unhealthy lung and a healthy lung. Healthy lungs need to be pink. The blood needs to be circulating. There can't be lots of fatty globules and so on, because that's just going to end up in what we call non-alcoholic fatty cirrhosis of the liver, and it's as bad. It's really dangerous. And today I saw a lady who was in the red with her fatty cirrhosis of the liver, and the gallbladder was blocked, the kidney was blocked, the liver was blocked, and she had asthma. So when you start putting all of that together, most of the detox organs were blocked. So they all were struggling. The whole body was struggling to get rid of the toxins. And then, of course, you also breathe less, so then there's less oxygen, and it's a downward spiral. And we don't want that, because we're focusing on life force, and we're focusing on energy and chi and prana and living our life to our very best ability, always, 24/7, 365 days a year. So just a warning here regarding smoking. It's linked to almost every single disease. It makes the blood thick. If the blood is thick, then remember, the blood is moving slowly. And a slow-moving blood means less percentage oxygen to the vital organs per minute. And then the heart will start crying for oxygen, and the brain and all the rest of the major organs of the body. So nobody wants a thick blood. And the amount of thick blood that I see, especially people living in the cities, on my dark field microscope is, nearly every single person, almost everybody in the cities these days, because of radiation and toxicity levels and low oxygen in the air, has got a couple of clots, blood clots. So that tells us that the charge, the zeta potential between the red blood cells and the rest of our cells is not happening. If they're touching and overlapping, they don't have the charge they need. You don't have the life force. The light bulb is not burning brightly, in other words. So just a caution, and that's why we have the DMSO, our declot shot. I call it that because it literally You can watch on the microscope after a glass of DMSO, and the cell vitality, the almost gold as well. You see the clots start dissolving. The red blood cells start coming off the main clot. And another very big reason and cause for clotting is big oil pools. It's medicine on its own. Is literally harvested and pressed in 1 month and sent to the 365 Healthy by Choice company. So it doesn't lie in any warehouse. It's not exposed to any electromagnetic field, which will also change the nature of the oil into the trans state, which is the cancer forming state, which is the free radical state. So oil is very important. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, because for the lungs, you need oil to moisturize the mucous membrane and the gut and the reproductive area. But we're talking lungs and air today. You need oil there to create, again, that membrane potential for the oil to the air to transfer through from the lungs to the blood. And at the cell membrane, you need oil potential again for the oxygen to move from the blood into the cell. It's absolutely critical and vital, and flaxseed oil does it. Apart from having the omegas in the right ratio for humans' consumption, apart from its work on the brain, this is where we need to use it. So if we just carry on with the presentation, I could get stuck on flaxseed oil all night just talking about its use in the lungs. It's where the bacteriophages live. It brings in immunity. You need it. And also the gut. All right, so oxygen is essential. We need to breathe. We don't make oxygen, so it's essential. We inhale oxygen, which creates energy and detoxifies the cells. Humans exhale the carbon dioxide as a waste product, and the trees absorb the carbon dioxide in the day for photosynthesis, which is encapsulated sunlight, and causes the glucose and release of oxygen for us. So trees will make the glucose and release the oxygen. There's all the bubbles of oxygen. And then here is briefly, I'm going to explain how does oxygen get from outside the air to inside the cell. So similarly in a leaf and with the photosynthesis, and how does a leaf, respire as well. We breathe through our nostrils, all right? The plant, the lung, in other words, the leaf is exposed. In us, the lung is inside, but still outside us, but it's inside the body. In a plant, it's exposed to the outside. So through osmosis and the electrical potential of the leaf, the air can go through into the plants. So we will breathe through our nostrils. We've got little cilia in the nostrils, which warms the air. The worst thing you can do is cold air in the lungs. And that's why people wear scarves. They'll cover them up if it's very, very cold, if they are sick. And I urge people to do that. You must have warm air. The worst thing about a ventilator is it's freezing cold air straight on the lung membrane. You can think about that. So the cilia will warm the air in the nostrils, as well as it's a filter. So that's going to filter out a lot of the bacteria and toxins before they get into the bronchus, the bronchioles. Now, as the bronchial tree breaks up, and then ultimately ending up in the alveoli. And then you've got the membrane and the blood. Then it goes to the cell membrane and inside the cell. So what we have here is we have the membrane between the alveoli, the capillaries, the tiny, tiny little blood vessels, and then moving into the pulmonary vein as the blood passes through the lungs. So oxygen will diffuse into the red blood cells, and carbon dioxide diffuses out. So inhalation will cause the oxygen to come through the membrane and into the blood cells, and exhalation will cause the carbon dioxide to leave. So we need a nice membrane potential across here for this to happen. And we need an oil coating on the inside of the alveoli for this to happen. All right. I can actually stop coughing in an hour by giving people a warm water with flaxseed oil in it. I put a bit of lemon juice, Put a tiny bit of honey for the direct effect of enzymes on the lung, on the alveoli. And do that once or twice, and in an hour, that person will have stopped coughing, simply because we've now moisturized and lubricated the alveoli. So suddenly now the oxygen's coming in and the carbon dioxide is leaving properly. So I hope, graphically this assists you to sort of appreciate, what's happening here exactly. We've got the artery coming in, which will carry the used oxygen, and we've got the pulmonary vein taking up the oxygenated blood. It's opposite to the normal circulation system. And now you can understand, if we get an embolism in the pulmonary veins or arteries, we get a blockage. And that's now, of course, they're going to the heart and coming from the heart and going to the heart. So here's another one, which, just a bit more diagrammatically will show us the epithelial cell layer membrane and the alveolar epithelium. You see it's enough for one cell only to pass through. So this is the lung, and then this is the blood, the red blood cell. And we're getting, by diffusion, the oxygen going through, and diffusion, the carbon dioxide going out. So diffusion always where you get things moving, gases moving, in this case, from a high concentration to a low concentration. But you need the membrane potential for that, and you need oil for that. Fluid and surfactant layer. That's the layer I was outlining just now. Good. That's from my good old pharmaceutical book, Guyton. Right. So now we've got the air from the nostrils all the way down the bronchial tree to the alveoli, and now it's in the blood. And now it's got to now move to the cell membrane. And similarly, with a membrane, we also need the lining on the cell membrane and the oil in the cell membrane too, because the cell membrane is made up of a double phospholipid layer, protein and 2 oil layers. And needs to first of all be squeaky clean. It can't be blocked and toxic. And then you need the flaxseed oil to bring the membrane potential. The other oils don't do it to the same degree as flaxseed oil does. And then you get the transfer of oxygen and food into the cell, and wastes and all the water out of the cell. So that's how it happens. We're going to see now what problems can happen, what gets in the way. So let's have a look here, the 10 common problems. So obviously poor air quality is very important, because the percentage of air gets less and less and less, and the percentage of toxins and particulate matter entering into the lungs will increase. So there's a nice app. I just want to get the name of it. We'll see what this app's called again. Okay, AccuWeather. If you go to AccuWeather, you download AccuWeather, you will get weather alerts, and you'll get all sorts of things. And for example, if I go there today, it's going to tell me that the air quality is fair. So fair means that the air quality is generally acceptable for most people, not everyone. However, sensitive groups may experience minor to moderate symptoms from long-term exposure. So, we're talking about parts per million here. We're talking about sulfur dioxide. We're talking about ozone. Earth ozone, you don't want to breathe that in. Nitrous oxide. And then carbon monoxide. So, the rating goes from dangerous to excellent. So anyway, I urge you to go and have a look at that, and then you can see. This picture's so bad, it makes my eyes sore. We got to breathe in the oxygen, breathe out the carbon dioxide. So this process needs to happen effectively. With the oil layer and the electrical charge of the body. And remember, the minerals will also bring in an electrical charge. Gold, copper, silver, nickel, cobalt, iridium, palladium, osmium, ruthenium, the platinum, precious metal minerals. So often we get parasites in the lungs, the blood, and also within the cell. and these causes diseases and disorders. I'm going to show you a couple of lung flukes just now. We get bacteria, we get funguses, and we get what's termed the viruses. We get the genetically modified organisms as well, all residing in there. Many times a natural parasite will come if there's a toxin. So if you're getting cadmium, for example, or diphtheria, remainder of a vaccination when you were a child, lodging in the lungs, there will be a certain group of parasites that come naturally, let's just rather call them organisms, come to help the body fight. They become parasitic when they start living off the body, because the body is acidic, it's inflamed, and the oxygen level is low. So then they start living off the body, become parasitic. So it will always start off with a naturally occurring pathogen coming that will develop into a parasite, or otherwise it's a straightforward man-made parasite. And then, as I said, these toxins can be chemical, environmental, too much free radical oil lying around in the blood, and it can be also diseases like anemia, and I'll show you now. So these toxins are a common cause. So you can see here we've got to breathe properly, a full breath in and a full breath out, and lift the diaphragm. We need to detox. We need to restore the genetics, the human genome, because often these toxins and ineffective breathing and free radicals from the oil damage, and radiation damage the human genetic code. So we get SNPs, we get all sorts of diseases originating from damaged genetic human genome. So we do need to restore the genes, and we do that with nutrition and detox and the quantum medicine software. Then adequate nutrition, of course, we need to have the minerals, gold, the platinum, precious metal minerals, gold, silver, copper, nickel, rhodium, osmium, palladium, ruthenium, platinum, all the ones I spoke to you about. We need adequate protein, especially to make the enzymes, the hormones, and repair and grow the cells, and energy in the form of the oil, and also carbohydrates, sugars. Long chain sugars are best, from spirulinas and bee pollens and medicinal mushrooms and so on. And then we've got a very big common cause here, which is stress. So stress will cause us to breathe in the top half of the lung, even in the top quarter, which is a normal reaction when we're running from the line all day. The adrenaline's pumping, the cortisol is pumping, hitting on the cell, reducing our immunity. We don't have enough gut microflora to come in and support the immune system either, where you get your friendly bacteria shape shifting into the opportunistic pathogen and going to the site, which I talked about here already, to help heal. And then you get an oxygen deficit, and then you start getting what we call metabolic breakdown, metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, thyroid problems, pancreas problems, liver, digestion problems, bone problems, adrenal problems. And what normally happens is people go and get a medical drug for each one of those, or two or three, or a cream, and estrogen, progesterone, testosterone levels too. So we say, hold on, this is not the real thing. We need to work from the liver, the blood, up to the hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal glands, get adequate secretion. First, clear all of that, get adequate secretion of these hormones and enzymes in place of digestion, etc. And then automatically, by magic, all of these areas restore themselves. So those areas, if you're suffering with thyroid, blood sugar, blood pressure, indigestion, adrenal fatigue, low estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, these are symptoms of glands not secreting, because the hypothalamus has got plaque and parasites and toxins in it. The liver's blocked and thick, and the blood is blocked and thick, so the signals are not getting to the hypothalamus to release the hormones. So most often they're there. We also have like an amoeba living in the gut, in the ileocecal valve mostly, and all over. And then they also eat all the neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, PEA, which is necessary also for proper hormonal functioning and happiness. So we don't want that to happen. We just go back to the slide. And so stress is very important. And stress will actually, because of the adrenaline and the cortisol, it will actually block the secretion of the hormones. So the liver and the blood can block the secretion of the hormones. A dirty hypothalamus will also block it, but stress will also block it. And then we bring in lifestyle. We need to do exercise. We need sun. We need water. We need obviously good air and rest and sleep. And, joyful company and all the rest of it. And, that also relaxes us and we breathe well. And then, of course, emotion. So I would like to just say that, regarding the lungs and the heart, we're talking about grief and sadness. So every single time, this emotion will be there if there are lung problems. And then, kidney would be fear, and, liver would be anger, gallbladder would be bitterness. And, that might just give you an overview as well of areas that are bothering you. So we need to deal with that because, the body speaks the mind and the emotions. And we can also stand on our head and cover our desks or our tables at home with nutrients that will help to a point. But if you've got stress and you've got that emotion that you're chewing on it and refusing to surrender to it, it's going to affect you on a cellular level. The amount of oxygen being absorbed and the amount of energy and life force that you do have. And then, of course, we get again that downward spiral, metabolic syndrome. And I put posture in here because of our sedentary lifestyle, exacerbated by lockdown, people sitting for longer periods, myself included. So we would be hunched over typically. If you're hunched over, you are squashing your stomach, your digestive system, you're squashing the diaphragm, and you're squashing the transverse colon. And therefore, oxygen can't get right down to the bottom of the lungs, and the carbon dioxide waste can't get out. So, standing while you work, one of those little tripods where you can lower the computer and raise it and lower it. Some people will make a desk over their treadmill and actually walk while they're working. So there's all sorts of ways of overcoming it. We just need to really do it. And that will come in daily exercise, our normal posture too. So important. All right, let's have a look here at some of the lung diseases and disorders. And this is just some of them, honestly, really. We all know and we've heard about pneumonia is very serious, very, very serious. And people do land up in hospital and should not be looked at lightly at all. But we want to get people before the pneumonias even set in, before the COPDs set in. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. We want to get people before the tuberculosis mycoplasma setting, before the emphysema setting. We want to nourish and detox way before the lung cancer. That is just a massive degenerative area in the lungs where all the cells are dying, they have no life force, and it's just continuing because the life force is not coming back. So the area is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, of course, the amount of air into the body is getting less and less. Silicosis, also very important. You can get plaque on the lungs, asbestos buildup from heaters, from the pink in the roof, from granite tiling. We can get ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and that would be, again, parasite pathogens, toxins. And then you see we got some more here. Pneumoconiosis, pulmonary embolisms. So the pulmonary embolism is what I did talk about earlier. That's when you get a clot. that often occurs in the body, in the veins, and then it travels in the veins and then gets up to the lung, and sometimes so on the way to the lungs, and sometimes between the lung and the heart. And then we can even get a pressure building up with the blood's very thick, pulmonary hypertension. We can get something called pleurisy, which is water on the lungs. We saw a lot of that with COVID. Really towards end stage, it's dangerous. Pneumothorax, when you get air blocked in between. And then obesity, hyperventilation, you see that because of the pressure of really big breasts, really big tummies, pressing down on the lungs. So the lungs extend, from the top right down to the waist, basically. And then also neuromuscular diseases, the nervous system and the muscles. All right, so we got some pictures now. The life cycle of a lung fluke. And I'm going to show you them. They're very gross. But you get the flukes. They will be in the gut. They will be in the lungs. They'll be in the pancreas. They'll be in the blood. And, all over the body. So you can see that they would be picked up. It's a foodborne disease. So how many of us are sitting in restaurants and all over the place? And, then what happens is that, they get ingested and then they travel all over the body, laying eggs. And, these kind of foods will end up eating it, and then we eat them as well. So there we go. Not a pretty sight. Here they are. They are really, really hideous. They are disgusting. There's the fluke. And this is lung tissue, right? Living in the lungs, and all different shapes and forms. They've got all the eggs inside them. And before, when I did lungs, I actually showed the video, and you saw these lungs popping in and out of the lung flesh. So, as I said, they'll be in the gut, they'll be in the pancreas, they'll be in the blood. This is a very serious one, the mycoplasma. So under the dark field microscope, you see these little round mycoplasmas swimming on their own, a whole lot of them. How the disease manifests, this is in the ox. Here's all the ulcers and the mycoplasma presenting. You can see it takes over the tissue, and then, there's very little surface area. It forms a mucus, it forms a big ulcer, and it just eats into the lung tissue, and the absorption of oxygen is poor. Here are some of the blood diseases that get in the way. So, lack of iron, and that would be dietary. It would be also poor absorption. If you don't have enough copper and the other minerals, you're not really going to absorb iron. You're not going to be able to use it properly. I always say, eat a lot of green leafy vegetables. They're very good for spinach, broccoli, kale, very good for the lung area, the lung and heart area. Anything leafy, of course, but loaded with iron. So iron will bind with the oxygen and carry it to the cell. When we've got anemia, and here's a slide here showing us, here's all the red blood cells, really a lot, adequate white blood cells. And in anemia, you've got really low amount of red blood cells. So, there's disorders that cause this. And in particular, the bone marrow, if it's not functioning properly, you're not going to get sufficient red blood cells and white blood cells and all your immunity cells being produced. I talked about thick blood a little bit earlier. It's moving slowly, and there's pools of oil, there's parasites, there's toxins, urea, all sorts of byproducts, waste, not cleaning out properly. The spleen has a very, very hard time. And when this thick coagulated blood is moving around with clots and so on, we get slow amount of oxygen. The heart cries out for it, so does the brain. And then if on top of it you've got arteriosclerosis, where the vessels inside walls of the vessels are coated in oil, plaque, cholesterol, then you've got a thinner vessel, and then you're going to get even less oxygen. So it's thick, and the diameter of the vessel is less. The blood pressure goes straight up. So it's very easy to reduce blood pressure in people. You bring oxygen in, you clear the vessel wall, and you thin the blood. And you do that with the flaxseed oil, with the DMSO, with the cell vitality, with the Ormus Gold, and you repair with the replica RNA DNA. You can also thin the blood with enzymes, digestive enzymes. They will remove the protein fibers. Replica RNA DNA will also, it carries the messenger RNA, which is for protein digestion. So those are all good things to get the blood really thin. And then, of course, stop the heated oil. And then, well, I've actually just talked about all of that. So the blood has to be in good working order to bring oxygen to the cell. And then regarding the cell vitality is very important. We measure it out of 10. And most people are sitting, I would say, between 1 and 6. 1 is 10% of oxygen and food is going into the cell, and 10% of the waste is leaving. And then the cell just expands and expands and expands. I had a classic lady today. 3 children in 4 years, all breastfed and not giving herself a chance, lots and lots of heated oil. She's just expanding weight-wise, and lots of oil in the blood, frying everything, not exercising, not getting her circulation going because she's so busy with the children, etc. So, classic case of metabolic syndrome, metabolic shutdown. Soon it will be high blood pressure, high blood sugar. These are all the warning signs were coming through there. Stroke volume increasing, and the arteriosclerosis and all the rest of it, cardiac failure. So it's nice to have the devices that we use at 365 Healthy by Choice, because we will always do a baseline to get remove the guesswork and to understand ourselves as therapists, what the main risk factor gaps are to close. Let the client understand too, because it's in black and white, it's on a graph in front of you or in a report, and then work towards reducing that and measuring again, sometimes in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month. So the therapist can validate the work, and the client can also. And it's, wonderful to, have an achievement of not only feeling well, but actually, wow, my health status moved from 37 to 57 in 1 month. And the next month coming back, it's on 77, and then the next thing, 87%. So it's so important to measure things, because then you can manage them properly and you remove the guesswork. And, not too many people will actually stick their neck out and measure before and afterwards and validate the product they've given you and validate the money that you spent. We are in the age of knowledge now, and that means we need to be able to do all those things. So how do we get the cell vitality, on 10 out of 10? Well, we're remembering that the cell membrane needs an electric potential, right? So this is the blue and the white part there. That is the cell membrane. And needs to be squeaky clean so that the food and the oxygen can, by osmosis and diffusion, move through, and the waste can move out again. So this is extracellular. This is inside the cell. And it can't be clogged. We need lots of flaxseed oil here to line the membrane, and detoxification. And we want the charge on the outer side to be minus 95 millivolts to be optimized, and less than 70 or more than 120, the cell's flat. You're not going to get growth there, and lots of damage to the human genome. And then inside here, you have to have the right pH of the body. You need enough electrons, which you get, by the way, from standing on the ground. You need electrons from the ground, right? You need electrons to bind with the oxygen to form the ATP and the energy. And the mitochondria, which is basically a eukaryote bacteria, needs to be, optimized functioning in order for all of this to occur. And then we need the perfect human genome to replicate, because we need to restore the the genome if there's genetic damage or damage from radiation or toxins and so on. And then we get optimized, maximized oxygen in the cell, and we get perfect cell division thereafter. Otherwise, we get diseased cell division. That's how disease sets in. So we want perfect, maximized cell division. So fresh whole foods are for the lungs. They will rebuild the lungs. We need the cell wall of the fresh food to rebuild our organs. And that means not juicing. It means rather making a smoothie and eating your salads. I had a lady today saying she has celery juice every morning. It makes her so hungry. Well, yes, of course it does, because you've removed the fiber. So you need to eat that bunch of celery rather, as nature intended it. And on top of that, the celery fiber is a prebiotic. So the probiotics can then form their little house for that period of time that the fiber's there. It doesn't digest all the cellulose. We need the prebiotics to do that. So you see, we in our haste to use our machines and mechanize everything, we actually destroy what we already have. So we're going to talk about some products now. And we've got a 30-day lung detox with 4 products, and we've got a combo with, it's actually 3 products. So let's have a look here and what I've put together. This is on the website. And, in my experience, these products are brilliant. Not taking the place of a microbiome reset, a flaxseed oil, a cell, So that's why I've got the 2 combos or the 2 specials. All right. Also price-wise. So either one and both are going to fix the lungs. It depends on your appetite to heal. So this Cleanse and Restore comes in a beautiful box, and it's got the cell oxygen in it, which is oxygen and magnesium. And the oxygen will split off and by osmosis move through into the blood, provided, of course, you've got a nice flaxseed oil lining in the mucous membrane of the gut, of course, and then it will get picked up by the hemoglobin and carried in the blood. So this is getting oxygen to the cell via the gut. So that would be a cell oxygen. The magnesium split off is wonderful. It relaxes the gut and the person. These work amazingly. You would have between 1 and 3 a day. I would do them an hour apart at lunchtime, but start off with 1 because there will be detoxification. Oxygen will kill everything, remove toxins. You can also use the Cell Vitality Oxy Mineral Drops here. And I'm happy to swap them out for you. Anybody who wants to do the 30-day detox, if you prefer the drops, I'm happy to swap it out for you as well. Okay, so either will work. Depends on your appetite. And the Respira Lung Cleanse and Restores what I put together specifically from the herbal range. It's got the top antifungal, antiviral, antibacterial, anti-yeast herbs. And that's the viral in inverted commas. And also herbs and nutrients like reishi and the medicinal mushrooms and the pollens to rebuild and to encourage oxygen transfer. So pollen and ginseng, cordyceps are all in there, and they will encourage oxygen transfer and the production of oxygen transferase enzymes. So the oxygen through the lungs into the bloodstream, the blood into the cell membrane. The microbiome reset contains the hydrolase enzymes and the transfer oxygenase enzymes as well. So this is a vital product, particularly during COVID, but particularly post-COVID, because imagine those mycoplasmas and flukes and things remaining. They will just grow and reduce your immunity, increase the parasitic attack on the body, assault on the body. So we have to repair that lung. We have to drive those parasites out, and these 2 are going to do it. Also the Cell Vitality Oxy Minerals. Here's the big para-immune defense, the big gun here. It's got about a 7 actually top herbs to basically destroy parasites and also heavy metals. And then here's our big repair their RNA DNA. So you'll get some RNA DNA in the lung cleanse as well. But here we need a full capsule, 2 a day if you are less than 50 kilos, and 4 a day if you're less than 70 kilos. Paramune would be 2 a day, the lung cleanse would be 2 a day, but depending. Sometimes you've got to go 2 in the morning and at night, 2 in the morning and at night, but I can help you with that. There's a nice link directly for that, and I'll put that on the chat in a moment. So the nice saving there. And then, of course, you know, and after 30 days, you have restored. But now let's move on to the other special combo, which is equally important. So the cell oxygen is there too, but here's our flaxseed oil cold pressed. You see there? Absolutely cold pressed. Full of life force, full of the enzymes for digestion. And there is our microbiome reset. It's got 80 to 120 live strains. At the most in the fridge, you will get 12. Man-picked. Here you've got nature who's made these strains and the substrains. We're not talking colony forming units here. We're talking strains, because these will form whatever colonies you want. They don't die. There's no cold chain. You don't put any of this in the fridge. First of all, the electromagnetic field. Secondly, these organisms will die. They're meant to be at room temperature. So I would definitely add this to this. You know, these 4 products. And if all you want is this one will also start healing the gut, the kidney, the lungs, the liver, the skin. It's immediate, within a week. And we have beautiful testimonies. You know, people taking these products will have coughed for 3-4 years sometimes. Within 3 to 4 days, the coughing stops. It doesn't come back. It's because we get the mycoplasma out. We get the fungus out. We get the bacteria out. So nice saving here as well of 100 Rand. And remember that this probiotic has got enzymes too. It's dynamic. It's absolutely dynamic. And we have our own microbiome kind of fingerprint. So with all these strains and substrains, you will build your maximized microbial flora according to your body's needs. And you will have the army ready to support the white blood cells, T cells, beta cells, NKF cells. When a toxin enters the body, it will go and ward it off. It will go and scavenge in the real form in the gut, and then it will travel in the blood in the opportunistic form to go and heal. And then if you've got enough oxygen, enough oil, and enough of these other products working to heal, you will get healing of the gut. So there's a link there that I'm going to give you as well. And I just want to share some of these other products with you. Enzymes, very important as well. And it depends on our baseline reading, you know, what we'll put together. So the enzymes will, especially the tripholas, 3-fruit enzymes, will break the biofilm that the parasites live in. They live in a biofilm, and you never ever get one organism. You never only have mycoplasma. You never only have liver flukes. There's a whole host that you co-hosting basically. And they live in a biofilm, and this needs to be dissolved, and these dissolve the biofilm. Then the replica RNA DNA will alert the immune system to the man-made organisms that our immune system is not wired to go and heal. Very, 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 very important what I've just said. So the replica RNA is not only healing, it's also boosting immunity. And these 2 products, the bee pollen, which is bee pollen, and the supercell oxygen, which is cordyceps, it's Siberian ginseng, it's reishi. It's also got nice oxygen for brain, ginkgos, gochicolas, will enhance the absorption of oxygen into the blood and then into the cells. So often indicated in people. And, you know, the bee pollen is very strong in boosting the immune system. I haven't talked about our Phyto C with over 12 different plants in it, plant forms of vitamin C and all the other vitamins, phytosterols, etc. So the body can choose what it wants. Very important that. There's a replica. Here's our Almost Gold, which has got all the minerals. I did mention minerals earlier. The platinum precious metal minerals, just to remind you: gold, silver, copper, nickel, cobalt, iridium, osmium, ruthenium, as superconductors, which charge the body. It's like I call it a battery pack. And this actually, the body needs charge. So when I watch those COVID patients on my quantum software in ICU, I watched them declining because they had no minerals, and their cell vitality was 1. So it doesn't matter how much cold ventilated air they were throwing at the body. It doesn't matter how much blood saturation there was. The cell vitality was 1. So that oxygen wasn't going through. They could never take the ventilator off. The minute they did that, there was death. Because nobody was concentrating on the minerals. Nobody was concentrating on the flaxseed oil, potential of the cell membrane. Nobody was focusing on funguses and the GM parasites. They were only giving an antibiotic. So the funguses grew, and people died of mycoplasma. I could see it on the screen. I would clear it. I would go and sleep. I'd come back in the morning, and the fungus was raised. And it never happens normally, but in the hospital it happens because they're hitting the bacteria out of that biofilm. They're killing the bacteria only. Very important product. So almost gold. If someone's really, really, chronic, I would do a tablespoon 3 times a day in water. Maintenance, a tablespoon a day. And then iodine, I just want to mention iodine as well. It also kills on impact. So part of our COVID pack is the cell oxygen, the iodine, the para-immune defense. And we pulled people through COVID with that, with some flaxseed oil, with the microbiome reset. And then, the repair work also with the RNA, DNA, and the lung repair. So we can repair with the nuclear proteins. The replica RNA, DNA is basically the uracil, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, CoQ10A, T, G, C, and the uracil, which has got the messenger RNA for protein digestion and necessary to build uracil, which builds the DNA double helix. So we have the CoQ10-4, not only A. It's a magic dynamic product, the replica RNA DNA, and especially for restoring the human genome. And I think we all need to do that. It's my passion, as you know. I'll come to the questions now. So, brilliant results with the COVID, with our nutrients, with our detox, and with the quantum software as well. And don't think COVID's really left us. We in South Africa are still in the 5th wave anyway. No, that's the end of that. So, that's really what I did want to share with you. I'm going to, where is the WhatsApp gone? I'm going to just drop these links in the chat for you so that you have them. And I'm also going to answer your questions now. So if anybody's got any other questions, please load it. All right, so this one here is the lung cleanse. Ooh. Let's just copy this link address and go to the webinar. And let me put it in the chat. So come on, guys. What are your questions? What have I left? That is the option 1. That is the lung cleanse and restore. And good foods for the lungs, and which we've been through today already. I like to use the Activa stem cell or the stress defense shield. The Activa stem cell's got the 5 adult stem cell producing products, which would be blue-green algae, cordyceps, lion's mane, royal jelly, and hoshuwu or foti. And the stress defense shield has got 30 nutrients and adaptogenic herbs, which will also reduce stress, which, as I told you in the beginning, will allow for the hormone release. So, but remember, if we've done a baseline assessment and we see the liver and the gallbladder are blocked, we see the kidneys blocked, we will, if the disease is in the lungs, we will clean the lungs, obviously, but we're also going to probably add a liver cleanse or a kidney cleanse, depending, So it's never one fits all, but regarding what we use, it can often be similar. So let me just get the other link. Okay, it's going to go in here. So this one is the combo of the 3 products: oxygen, the microbiome, and the flaxseed oil. And the other one above it is the then you can do so on the WhatsApp and just leave a message with your name, and I'll get back to you and I'll guide you. You know, I've really got a quest, and I want people to be well, and I'd like people to know how to use the products. So I want you to share the information where you can. Obviously, refer your friends. Obviously, I'll see them, your family, work colleagues. You know, bring them here. I've got a beautiful live microscope. When you see the mycoplasma floating around in the blood, it's hideous. When you see the spirochetes swimming, it's hideous. When you see all the other rod bacteria, the candida, the funguses, and so on, it's not a pretty sight, you know. And I mean, to be honest, post-vax, it's terrible. The blood is really terrible, and we've got to clean quickly. So, yeah, very good to get a lot of people well. And let me just see what has been asked here. Oh, you don't have to have the consultation before. It's really for your own validation. But let's say the liver and the gallbladder are also blocked. You wouldn't know if you don't do an assessment. You wouldn't know the level in less than a month. She's going to be up to 85, 90, and hopefully 95. Because we're actually cleaning that lungs, we're giving the nutrients, and she's measuring. So you do miss out on that. You don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. You will feel well. You will be oxygenated. You will have life force. You know, you will have joy, because joy brings life force and happiness. So, you know, your whole demeanor is just beautiful. You're just looking, you know, the epitome of health. And people will ask you, you know, what are you doing? You will just feel great. Your skin's nice. I get people asking me, you know, Jane, you know, my breath smells. It's terrible. So we know we've got to go and have a look at the gut, and possible also lung infection, because, you know, it's coming in and out. And, you know, how we would clean the gut, we would clean the lungs quite similarly, not completely similarly. And the products potentiate each other. What does that mean? 1 + 1 is 3. 3 + 3 is 9. So 4 + 4. So the more products you put together, the greater the impact, the quicker the impact, the sooner that cough stops, the sooner the symptoms of COVID go, the sooner health. It's very important to unravel that. If any therapist doesn't do that, they're really missing the point completely. So thanks for that great question. But as I said to you, you know, I'll do whatever's necessary. The one testimony I played a few weeks ago, I never met the lady. She came off Facebook, and she said, I've got I haven't been sleeping. I've had pain in my gut for well over 2 years. I've got indigestion. I've got reflux. I'm just a wreck. My nervous system is shot. I'm not sleeping. I said to fine. I said, this is what's going to cost. I'm sending it to you. You're going to follow my instructions. That's what you're going to do. And she recorded back to me, recording. She said, Jane, in less than a week, I feel human. And I haven't felt human for all this time, 2 to 3 years. She said, I don't have pain. I sleep. That means she can now start digesting, absorbing her food, metabolizing it, and getting the food and the oxygen to the cell. Then we start restoring energy and life force, repairing. And that's when the joy and the fun really starts. So, you know, I've kind of spoken what I needed to speak about today. We're going to do lungs again next week, because we're going to be hearing from the people who've stopped. Very important, avoid the over-processed foods. The white potatoes out. Most people, wheat is out. Most people, dairy is out. Dairy is heated. The oil's heated. The protein's heated. It's become a bit toxic to the body. And then avoid heated oil every level. I mean, I'm actually telling people never, ever again have heated oil because of the oil blockage and buildup in their body. It is too terrible for words. Too terrible for words. And then lots of enzymes, pineapple. You get your enzymes from fruit. Remember enzymes, because they will break down the film, and they also break down protein, and they're important for digestive pathways and absorption pathways and so on. And always go for the whole food. I like the things like the active stem cells and the stress defense shield, or the medicinal mushrooms, the pollens, propolises, royal jellies, blue-green algae, chlorella, spirulina, sprouted organic sprouts, organic nuts, seeds, fruit. The almost gold, it's a nutrient on its own, minerals. And then you're A for away, and you're living, and you're not worried about being ill. Okay, so next week we'll continue with the lungs, and then we can organize an EFT and a courier delivery or a postnet delivery, whatever suits you. So I welcome you all, and I take this opportunity to thank you for joining me. I'm only as good as you, you're only as good as me, and it's teamwork. So thank you, and I honor your time. Have a blessed rest of the day.